Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another edition of Shaun Solo, and today I want to talk about kind of a loose topic. I was thinking about console exclusivity in the modern era, and how it kind of doesn't make sense anymore, as even just a concept. Just because over the past, I don't know, especially over the past this holiday season, I think the rise of the Tomb Raider is kind of indicative of my feelings about modern console exclusivity. That game, kind of a critically lauded game. I haven't been able to play it because I don't have an Xbox One, but critically lauded. People are saying it's really good. Kind of addresses some of the problems that people had with the first, of the rebootquel, Tomb Raider stuff. So I really want to play that game. And I know it's coming out on PC, but my PC it's a little out of date. And while I'll probably get, an upgrade at some point, I don't want to experience the game in a subpar way. I could probably run it on low settings, but I want to play it the best that I can possibly play it. So I wish that I could play it on my PlayStation 4, and that's not the case. Because Xbox One, they did kind of this exclusivity deal that gives them a year on consoles. It's actually coming out on PC in a week, I think. Next week it does. Next Tuesday. But like I said, I can't really play it. Just how much of a bummer that was. Not only was it a bummer for me, but it's a bummer for the people that made that game, because that game bombed. Didn't even make top 10 charts in terms of sales for the few months after it came out. Granted, that's probably going to change a little bit once the PC version comes out, but by kind of doing these console exclusive deals or whatever, you're cutting off the knees of some of these games, in their ability to kind of get out there and grow and find an audience. Because while the first Tomb Raider sold pretty decently, and I'm kind of curious where it sold the most. I have a feeling that it was mostly on PlayStation 3, but I guess or maybe it was probably an even split between Xbox 360 and PS3. But Xbox came in, they're like, hey, we'll give you some money, for the sequel, to actually make the sequel, to actually develop it, if you give us exclusivity for, I guess, a year. Ended up being a year, because it comes out in PlayStation 4 Christmas 2016, which is a real bummer, because that's, all the hype and everything surrounding the game is just going to be gone. So it's kind of going to be weird, to be re-excited for something that's already a year old, and that already has kind of had a life, and already has had, its critical reception. It's all going to be pretty much the same, unless there's things that are specifically different about the PS4 version, but I'm pretty sure it's mostly just going to be basically your Game of the Year version. Probably similar to what they did when they re-released, Tomb Raider in the Definitive Edition. And this kind of bums me out because there's some other games, actually, and Xbox is kind of the one that does this the most. And I don't really mean for first-party stuff, because Halo, I understand, that is a Microsoft developed thing. That's going to always be a Microsoft thing. Same thing with Uncharted, that's a Sony thing. But when it comes to kind of these third-party games and kind of studios having, I don't know, too much of a influence over where these products are going to be available, it's kind of, I think it's just a bummer. I think it's lose-lose for both consumers and developers alike, because imagine the audience Naughty Dog games would have. Imagine the audience were Uncharted even, or The Last of Us. Imagine if that was on PC and Xboxes and stuff like that. That game would have been massive. Probably those games would probably reach the heights of, I don't know this for sure, but they might reach Grand Theft Auto 5 type success, where that game is just runaway. It's ridiculous. Now, granted, of course, on the developer side, you got to optimize for the other systems, but I think nowadays things are so ubiquitous, it's pretty easy to be interchangeable between each of the platforms. It doesn't seem like it's not that big of a deal like it was a few years ago, especially with the PlayStation 3 era. There was legitimately you had to kind of develop games for PlayStation 3 if it was going to run really well. So with a lot of ports, it was okay, it's developed for 360 and ported to the PS3, and most of the time, the performance of those games was suffered for it, because of the PS3's kind of really hard to work with. I think it was what's called the Cell system, or is it Diamond? I don't know. Whatever hardware they had in there, and software, was just really hard to develop for. But But just everybody loses and I'm thinking about actually Remedy's new game. I'm a big fan of Remedy. I've always been a big fan of their studios. They made the original 2 Mad Maxes. They made Alan Wake. So I've been a fan of theirs for a long time. I really like Sam Lake and his team and like what they develop. I really love those games. They're like this combination of actually pretty good mechanics and also like good kind of narratives, interesting narratives. Like, love or hate Alan Wake. Alan Wake's actually a pretty like interesting game, and it's mechanically interesting too. It actually works pretty well with its kind of flashlight system and blah blah blah. Like I played that back on the 360 when it first came out, and I ended up getting it on PC when they ported it a few years later, which is cool that it actually finally came to PC. But like imagine if it was just available everywhere, like because that game was kind of a middling success. It did okay. It didn't do great, and it kind of just hampers itself by being console exclusive. So I'm just like, I gotta wonder, like, Microsoft must be putting up a lot, especially for their new game, Quantum Break. Like, because it's gonna be an Xbox One exclusive. Rumors are that it will make its way to PC at some point. So I'll probably upgrade my PC within the next year, so I'll probably get to play it at some point, but I kind of want to play that on my big screen TV, like, sitting in my comfy chair that's back there. I want to like sit there and really immerse myself in it, especially with Quantum Break, because that game is going to also involve a television show that you're going to watch while you play the game. So you're going to play the game, then you're going to like watch an episode of a show. I don't know how much interaction there's going to be while you're watching the show, so it'll be interesting. It looks really interesting. So of course I want to play it, not just because I'm a Remedy fan, but it just looks interesting on its own. And I might. By the time I get to play it, like, kind of, I guess the sheen is going to be off of it. Like, I'm not going to be able to be part of that conversation with other gamers and other fans. Like, I won't be able to make a video, and I won't be able to talk to my friends and my brothers, and that sucks. As a consumer, that just sucks. As somebody that is a hobbyist in this, that sucks. And I know they say, oh, well, if you're really a gamer, you're really a hobbyist, you just own all the different consoles. But that's the thing. Like, there isn't really much of a need to do that anymore, because everything is kind of on everything now. So it's when these little cherry-picked, just these few titles here and there that are exclusive, and it's kind of like really infuriating. It's really like aggravating. I guess aggravating is a better way to put it. Infuriating, a little bit more, that's kind of an overstatement. But it's just it's a real bummer. And I just, like, in 2016, I don't really get it anymore. I like the thing, like, with COD maps, like Call of Duty map packs, for years and years it was always Xbox 360, so, and I played all those games, like Black Ops and stuff, on PlayStation 3, so I had to wait, and it was a bummer, because you'd be aware, like, oh, it's dropping on 360 this month, and then I would probably have to wait a month to 2 months, I think it was a month delay. Not 100% sure exactly what it was, but it felt like a long time, because you would see screenshots, you'd see people talking about the maps, and, like, you were stuck not having access to them. And it kind of just takes the excitement away. And they're still doing it to this day. Like, they still did that with Black Ops 3. Like, finally, Sony PlayStation's got exclusivity on the maps for, like, a month. And it's like, really, why? Like, you're just shitting on consumers. It's not, like, to anyone's benefit, really, honestly. I mean, unless, of course, you own a PlayStation 4, or in the past you've owned an Xbox console. Yeah, then you benefited. I mean, but then it just creates this kind of arbitrary, like, console loyalty. It doesn't really feel, I don't know, necessary anymore. Like, I've always been a PlayStation person, all their foibles and everything. Like, even though on PlayStation 3 was probably not, like, overall the better system in terms of performance with a lot of games. But I had always been a PlayStation person. I've been a PlayStation person since the PlayStation 1, and I liked my PlayStation 3. And also, not only that, but it also had some added functionality in terms of it was a Blu-ray player, and, like, it had stuff like that, and I could watch, take a USB stick and watch, like, other, like, downloaded stuff on my PlayStation 3. So that was, like, an added bonus. Like, so I liked it for that kind of stuff. I liked it for the media box thing. And same thing with my PlayStation 4. I like it because it's an effective media box on top of being a gaming console. So, like, it's all in one. Like, I don't have cable anymore. Like, I've cut the cord totally. So for me, I watch my Netflix through those devices. I will have Hulu Plus and Netflix. That's my main thing. I have my Amazon Prime account, or my Amazon account. I don't normally have Prime. But, like, you know, so I can rent movies and stuff like that. I do everything through that box pretty much. You know, and I think an Xbox is kind of, they jumped on that, like, pretty hard this time around, the Xbox One, but it's almost like it was too complicated. And it was too kind of beholden to an older system, because a lot of the functionality for a lot of their stuff, at least, you know, when it first came out, was you needed to have cable and stuff like that, like, plugged in directly, and you could control your cable through your Xbox One for really no reason. There wasn't really much of an added benefit to it, other than, like, oh, you can play fantasy, and also, like, or clip, you know, you can play a game while having a sports game on, or a TV show in the corner, or something like that, and you can adjust the audio levels, like, whoa. I mean, it's something I actually do, but I just use my laptop. Like, so, if I'm playing a game that's not really narratively driven or whatever, if I'm playing, like, Destiny, I'll often open my laptop and watch a movie or something, or put a TV show on in the background. You know, put my laptop in front of me, glance down on it every once in a while. Hey, it works just as well. Actually, it works probably better, because I'm not, like, fucking around with some weird interface. Yeah, so, I mean, I guess that was a little tangent, I suppose. But, but you know, just like this, it's just, like, it just feels more arbitrary, because they're both about, like, as powerful as the other now. And there's really no reason to pick one or the other, honestly. It all came down to preference, like, and for a lot of people that was, like, you know, if you were a Halo person, or you'd always been an Xbox person, like, you might buy an Xbox. Like, I had a friend who just bought the Xbox One just because it was an Xbox. He's like, I've always had an Xbox, I'm just buying an Xbox One. Like, it was a no-brainer. There was, like, kind of this brand familiarity, this brand loyalty. But, you know, he's just as bummed as I am, like, about not being able to play Tomb Raider or Quantum Break. Like, he's just as bummed, like, well, he can't play The Last of Us, or he can't play the new Uncharted. And, you know, that sucks. That just sucks on a consumer level. And it doesn't, you know, because, like, to go out and buy a console for one or two titles is a little ridiculous nowadays. Like, you know, I know we're in a little bit of an economic upswing, but come on, let's be reasonable. Especially just with how much games cost, the frequency they come out, the amount of games that fucking come out, the cost of peripherals, like the cost of an internet, you know, to have internet at your house, like the cost of your TV, your HD TV, like all these things kind of compounded onto each other, and it just does not make it friendly to, like, your base level consumer, and that really sucks. You know, like, I guess, like, you know, for me, it's more like, well, you know, you decided to do this, it's your hobby. Well, it's one of my hobbies, but it's like my hobby to buy and play video games. You know, so I guess, like, the burden is mine, like, it's my fault, because I want to play as much as I can, and as many games as I can, and blah, blah, blah. And sure, that's fair. You know, a lot of people would be like, well, put your money into it. Like, that's your choice. And I agree. You know, part of this is just like in some respects, the free market at work. But it sucks when the free market just, like, is exclusionary, because it's not actually a natural free market occurrence. It's like just an exclusionary tactic to try to manipulate the free market. So the Xbox One and PS4 are not, like, side by side being like, which one do people want more? Which one has more powerful hardware? Like, in the entirety of your purchasing decision. Because not only that, but there's not that much difference. But also, the PlayStation 4, the market kind of spoke and said the PlayStation 4 is the one. So Microsoft is kind of scrambling, probably trying to get more exclusives than they would otherwise. That's kind of a bummer. That's a bummer to me. Like, cause I'm just like I said, I've always been a PlayStation fan, but I don't have, like, any weird loyalty, I suppose. Like, if the Xbox One was, like, without a doubt, like, the better system at the time, like, they came out, or I bought my PlayStation 4, I probably would have gotten an Xbox One. Like, as much as I love Sony, I've just been with Sony forever. So for me, there's also, like, a continuity reason why. Like, I have a PlayStation Network account. I have tons of games on PlayStation Network. So there's like a reason to do it that way as well. And I'm sure a lot of people on the Xbox felt the same way, but not a ton of them, because there was a lot of people that the PlayStation 4, that's the first PlayStation product they've ever owned. You know, they were Xbox people before that. So I don't know. It just really blows. It blows that I can't play Quantum Break when it comes out this year. I'm really bummed. And I mean, I'm sure I'll probably be able to go watch like a very thorough Let's Play, like some 30-hour Let's Play or something like that. But I don't really want to do that. I want to play it myself. So, and I bet you they content ID the shit out of that game actually, because if it's got like a built-in TV show that has like episodes, they're not gonna be able to put that shit on YouTube. You might have to go through more nefarious ways experiencing that content. You made me do this. You put me here. I didn't put me here. That's you. You did this, Microsoft. You did this to yourself because you're selfish. You selfish bastards. But yeah, I guess, I don't know. That's just a little rant, I suppose. I was just thinking about it today. And I was just thinking about it because I thought about Quantum Break, and I was like, oh man, I wish, like, I'm just like kind of burnt out on open world stuff for a little bit, so I'm kind of trying to play more like linear games. Just for a little, I don't know, I was thinking about, like, and I've played Beyond, and I'm going to continue doing a Let's Play of it on the channel, and I was like, I wish there was more, like, kind of linear action, science fiction-esque games that I could play. Like, in that third-person kind of vein. Like, I just like stuff like that. And I really like Remedy as well. And there's really not a ton. Like, everything now is so focused on just open world. Everything's got to be open world. Everything's got to have a bajillion things to do, whether it's like feels impactful or satisfying or not. Like, it's quantity over quality a lot of times with these games, and I'm just burnt out on it. I mean, like, I'm like probably halfway through Far Cry 4, which I've enjoyed. I've been playing Far Cry 4, and I've enjoyed it to a certain extent. I just kind of play it the way I play Far Cry 4. Which is like a year after it comes out, and then I just go through and I unlock as much stuff as I can, and then it's doing like all these arbitrary fucking wall things where it's like, well, you can't go to this area and unlock these like camps or whatever because you haven't done this enough story missions, and I hate that shit. I really like just being able to go do what I want to do when I want to do it, and I'll figure out the narrative stuff later. And the narrative of that game is not that great, so it's not like I'm super interested in really seeing. And I've done a ton of hunting for like 12 hours. I've upgraded like everything I possibly can. I've gotten all the camps and I've freed all the things. I've done all these missions, so I'm like already burnt out because there's just too much shit to do. And then when you go do missions, it's just like more of the same. It's more of all the side quests I've already been doing. So that sucks. To me, that sucks. Like, I like it. I've talked about this before about open world games. Like, I think the main quest, the narrative stuff needs to be unique to all your side quests. Like, it's okay if, like, you introduce a concept, I suppose, like, in the early missions, but once you get into the meat of that game, there should be a difference between the side quests and your main quests, because then it just becomes even more redundant. It's more fucking repetitive, and it just irritates me. But yeah, so, I don't know. I guess if you guys have any opinions about console exclusivity, is it worth it? Is it kind of an outdated thing? I think it's a little bit outdated. I mean, I like understand intellectually why they do it, obviously. It's because they're trying to get people to buy their console. But I think just as consumers, and I think if consumers just spoke up a little bit more, like, about stuff like this, and about, like, I think DLC is starting to people are finally giving the pushback, because they're finally they're charging like $40 to $50 for DLC now, for year passes, rather than like $20. Arkham Knight being a hugely, even disappointing, even the fans of that game that were just like, this DLC was a total waste of time. It's fucking challenge maps and like 45-minute story missions. Also, Battlefront, like, where it's basically half the game's content is locked away, which is a way for them to only charge you $60. That's what they say. They're like, well, if we actually charged you what this game should cost, it would be like $110, but we want to have that $60 price point, so we'll just ask you for more money later. I don't know. It's like, it's a very complicated thing, and I don't really know how I feel about it. But hopefully, but I think the message was kind of clear, though, with that, was just that people are like, no, let's not go down this road. We've kind of let you get away with it for this long, so let's kind of give a little pushback. So it'd be cool if people started kind of pushing back a little bit on console exclusivity, and the kind of just the bullshit rigmarole that surrounds that. Like, let's give games and gamers like the chance to be as big and have the broadest audience as possible. Like, why would you sequester it to one thing? And just so happens that this time the PS4 is the successor, so the things that are on the PS4 will probably get a wider audience than the Xbox One. But, just as a fan of these studios, like, I want Remedy to keep making games. I want them to be able to keep making games. So, this game, Quantum Break is going to flop. Like, it's just not going to have, like, that huge audience. I guarantee you it flops, if not as bad, just as much as Tomb Raider. All their games never do great. Max Payne is their most successful thing they've ever done. It was Max Payne 2. Alan Wake, super underwhelming. That's why they actually had like planned sequels and stuff like that never came to fruition. And a lot of people thought when they announced Quantum Break they were announcing an Alan Wake sequel, but no. Like, even with like its cult status and the fact that it sold really well on PC was not enough to get that game made. And they say, oh, of course, we'll come and revisit it. And they kind of teased it with American Nightmare. So everybody thought they were building towards Alan Wake 2, which I was super excited about, but alas, no. But still, Quantum Break does look awesome. And I wish that like it just had a chance. It's not going to have a chance on the Xbox One, unfortunately. But anyways, that's going to do it for me today. I'm Shaun, and I will talk to you guys next time I got something to talk about.